In the summer of 1838, a tale unfolded upon the endless expanse of the Atlantic Ocean, one that would challenge the very understanding of solitude, fate, and the merciless nature of the sea. This story begins not with grand fleets or celebrated naval battles, but with a lone sailor embarking on a voyage destined to become the stuff of maritime legend. The ocean, vast and indifferent, stretched beyond the horizon as a silent witness to the unfolding drama, its depths concealing secrets that few dared to confront. The sailor, whose name was Thomas Merrick, was a man shaped by the unforgiving realities of 19th-century seafaring. Born into a lineage of mariners, he had spent his youth navigating coastal waters and braving tempestuous storms. Yet, it was the open ocean that called to him, a realm where man was but a speck against the vastness of nature. In 1838, at the age of 32, Merrick set forth from the bustling port of Liverpool aboard a modest merchant vessel bound for the Americas. The ship, the Eleanor, was a sturdy brigantine laden with cargo and crew, all accustomed to the perils of long voyages. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. The world of maritime travel in the early 19th century was one of uncertainty and hardship. Navigation relied on celestial observation and rudimentary charts. Storms could appear without warning, and the threat of shipwreck loomed constantly. The sea was a place of both opportunity and death, where survival hinged on skill, luck, and endurance. Merrick, seasoned but not unscarred, understood these risks as he stood on the deck, bidding farewell to the familiar shores of England. The air was thick with salt and promise, and the ship's timbers creaked in rhythm with the waves, a symphony of departure. As the Eleanor slipped away from the harbor, Merrick's thoughts were a mixture of anticipation and quiet resolve. He was not merely a sailor, but a man seeking something elusive, perhaps redemption, or a reprieve from the ghostly memories that haunted his past voyages. His shipmates, a diverse assembly of men bound by the shared hardship of the sea, prepared for the weeks ahead, securing sails and checking provisions. The captain, a grizzled veteran named Samuel Hargrove, was a figure of authority and experience, his eyes scanning the horizon as if reading the ocean's moods. The voyage began under a sky painted with the soft hues of dawn, the sea calm and seemingly benevolent. Days stretched into nights, the ship cutting through the waves with steady purpose. Merrick found solace in the routine, hoisting sails, navigating by sextant, and sharing tales with his comrades beneath the stars. Yet, beneath the surface of this daily rhythm lay an undercurrent of unease. The ocean, for all its beauty, bore a latent menace, a reminder that man's dominion was fragile and fleeting. Merrick's cabin was a sparse sanctuary, adorned only with a few personal mementos, a worn journal, a compass that had belonged to his father, and a small wooden carving of a ship. These objects grounded him amid the vastness, tangible links to a world beyond the endless blue. At night, he would write in his journal, chronicling the voyage's progress and his own reflections. His entries spoke of the sea's capricious nature, the camaraderie among the crew, and an ever-present sense of isolation that no company could fully dispel. The historical backdrop of this journey was one of maritime transition. The age of sail was nearing its twilight, with steam-powered vessels beginning to alter the face of ocean travel. Yet, for many like Merrick, the romance and danger of sailing ships remained undiminished. The Eleanor was a microcosm of this era, a vessel reliant on wind and skill, navigating routes carved by generations before. The Atlantic itself was a formidable barrier, a place where countless ships had vanished or met grim fates, swallowed by storms or the unforgiving depths. As days passed and the coastline receded, Merrick's thoughts turned increasingly inward. The monotony of the open sea was punctuated by moments of stark clarity. The sight of a distant whale breaching the surface, the cry of gulls over a transient wave, the sudden swell that rocked the ship with primal force. Each event was a reminder of the power and indifference of the natural world, a force that neither man nor machine could fully tame. It was here, amid the vast uncertainty, that the sailor's story truly began. The narrative of 1838's maritime voyage is not merely a chronicle of a journey, but a meditation on human endurance and the mysteries that lie beyond the horizon. Merrick's passage across the Atlantic was marked by the ordinary trials of seafaring, navigational challenges, unpredictable weather, and the ever-present threat of isolation. Yet beneath these surface realities lurked a deeper enigma, one that would come to redefine the sailor's understanding of life and death at sea. The ocean's vastness was both a physical and psychological frontier. For Merrick, the endless waves symbolized freedom and entrapment in equal measure. The horizon was a boundary and a promise, a line that could never be crossed yet beckoned with the allure of the unknown. This paradox was the essence of the sailor's existence, caught between the known and the unfathomable, between survival and surrender. In the days before the storm that would alter his fate, Merrick maintained a routine that tethered him to the world. He studied the skies, charted the ship's course, and engaged in the camaraderie of the crew. Yet, even amid these routines, the silence of the ocean weighed heavily. The vast expanse was a mirror reflecting the solitude within, a solitude that would soon be tested beyond measure. The sea, a force as ancient as time itself, awaited the moment to reveal its darker face. This introduction to Thomas Merrick's voyage sets the stage for a story steeped in maritime tradition and human vulnerability. The year 1838, with its blend of old-world sailing and emerging modernity, frames a journey that is both historical and timeless. The ocean's boundless reach becomes a character in its own right, a silent, watchful presence that shapes the sailor's destiny. As the Eleanor sailed further from the shores of England, the line between reality and the supernatural began to blur, hinting at the mysteries yet to unfold. Thus begins the account of a sailor lost at sea, a narrative rooted in the harsh realities of 19th-century maritime life, but destined to transcend them. The vast and treacherous ocean is no mere backdrop, but an active force, a labyrinthine expanse where the boundaries of existence are tested. Merrick's journey, humble in its origins, would soon become a profound exploration of isolation, identity, and the unknowable depths that lie beneath the waves. The Eleanor had been at sea for nearly 3 weeks when the first signs of trouble appeared on the horizon. The once calm Atlantic began to churn with an ominous energy, the sky darkening as heavy clouds amassed like an impending judgment. Thomas Merrick, standing at the prow, felt the familiar tightening in his chest, a sailor's instinct honed by years against capricious waters. The wind whispered warnings through the rigging, and the crew moved with tense urgency, their faces etched with the knowledge that nature's mercy could not be taken for granted. On the morning of July 14, 1838, the sea transformed from a placid expanse into a roiling tempest. The Eleanor creaked and groaned under the assault of towering waves and biting winds. Captain Hargrove barked orders, the crew scrambling to secure sails and brace the vessel against the storm's relentless fury. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the chaos with brief, ghostly flashes, while thunder rolled like the voice of an angry god. The storm was unlike any Merrick had experienced before, a violent force that seemed to challenge not just the ship, but the very will of those aboard. Amid the tempest, Merrick found himself alongside his closest companion on the voyage, a young sailor named James Calloway. Calloway was a steady presence, his calm demeanor a balm amid the storm's madness. Together, they battled the elements, hauling ropes and adjusting the sails as the Eleanor pitched and yawed. The ship was tossed like a toy, waves crashing over the deck, water flooding the timbers. The roar of the wind drowned out all but the most urgent commands, each moment a test of endurance and resolve. Yet, in the heart of the storm's fury, disaster struck with sudden and cruel precision. A massive wave, towering and unyielding, swept across the deck, separating Merrick from Calloway in an instant. The sailor's grip slipped, and he was cast into the churning sea, swallowed by the cold, merciless depths. The ship, battered but afloat, vanished into the tempest's haze, leaving Merrick alone amidst the vast and unforgiving ocean. The immediate aftermath was a blur of disorientation and shock. Merrick struggled to keep his head above water, gasping for breath as the waves relentlessly pummeled him. The cold bit into his flesh, sapping strength with every passing minute. His cries for help were swallowed by the storm's cacophony, the Eleanor nowhere to be seen. In that moment, the vastness of the ocean revealed its true nature, not a nurturing cradle, but a vast wilderness indifferent to human suffering. As the storm began to subside, Merrick found himself adrift, clinging to a piece of floating debris, a fragment of the shattered rigging, or perhaps a portion of the ship's wooden railing. The sky, once a roiling mass of anger, now cleared to a pale gray, the sun's weak light filtering through the thinning clouds. The sea calmed to a deceptive stillness, the endless waves rolling gently beneath a vast, empty sky. Yet, the sailor's predicament was dire. He was alone, isolated by the unyielding expanse of water that stretched in every direction. In the days that followed, Merrick's struggle for survival became a relentless battle against despair and exhaustion. The ocean offered little sustenance, save for the occasional gull or drifting seaweed. The sun's relentless glare scorched his skin by day, while the cold gnawed at his bones by night. He rationed his meager supplies, some water stored in a cracked flask, a handful of salted biscuits salvaged from his coat pocket. Each moment was a test of will, the line between hope and surrender growing ever thinner. Throughout this ordeal, Merrick's mind oscillated between clarity and confusion. Memories of the Eleanor and his shipmates haunted him, particularly the image of Calloway, his steadfast companion lost to the storm's fury. The sailor grappled with the cruel irony of survival, clinging to life while all that was familiar receded into oblivion. The ocean, once a realm of possibility, had become a prison of isolation. Merrick's survival instincts compelled him to take stock of his surroundings. He observed the patterns of the sea, the direction of the currents, and the position of the sun and stars. These celestial markers offered faint guidance, a tenuous thread connecting him to navigation's ancient art. Yet, without a vessel or provisions, the path to rescue seemed an impossible dream. The ocean was a vast labyrinth, and Merrick was but a solitary figure, lost within its endless corridors. The sailor's reflections turned inward, contemplating the fragility of human existence in the face of nature's indifference. His training and experience had prepared him for many dangers, but the profound solitude and helplessness of his situation were trials of a different order. The sea was not merely a physical challenge, but a crucible of the mind and spirit, testing the boundaries of endurance and sanity. In this solitude, Merrick found moments of unexpected clarity. He recalled the lessons of his youth, the stories told by old sailors around crackling fires, tales of phantom ships, ghostly apparitions, and the sea's mysterious will. These legends, once dismissed as superstition, now seemed to bear an uncanny resonance with his own predicament. The ocean was a realm where time and reality could bend, where the known world gave way to the unknown. As the days blurred together, Merrick's physical condition fluctuated between resilience and weakness. Exposure and hunger took their toll, yet his determination to survive remained unbroken. He fashioned makeshift tools from the debris, attempting to signal passing ships or catch rainwater. Each small success was a beacon of hope, each setback a reminder of the sea's relentless power. The vastness around him was both a prison and a paradoxical source of freedom. Merrick was untethered from the constraints of land and society, adrift in a world where the rules were rewritten by wind and wave. This isolation forced him to confront the essence of existence, to reckon with mortality, identity, and the fragile thread that separates life from oblivion. Throughout his ordeal, Merrick's thoughts often returned to the Eleanor, to the ship that had been his home and his lifeline. He imagined her battling the storm, her timbers creaking and sails tearing under the tempest's wrath. The hope that she had survived, that rescue might come from her or another vessel, sustained him through the darkest hours. Yet, with each passing day, the distance and silence grew heavier, the line between hope and despair ever more tenuous. In the quiet moments between storms, Merrick turned to his journal, the worn pages a sanctuary for his thoughts. He recorded the passage of time, the shifting moods of the sea, and the flickering embers of hope that kept him alive. Writing became an act of defiance against the encroaching void, a testament to the human spirit's refusal to yield. The sailor's voyage, once a shared endeavor aboard the Eleanor, had transformed into a solitary odyssey, a man adrift on the vast, indifferent ocean, fighting against fate and isolation. The storm had severed the bonds of companionship and safety, leaving Merrick alone to navigate the uncertain waters of survival. His journey was no longer a passage between ports, but a voyage into the heart of endurance itself. As the sun rose and set over the endless waves, Merrick remained vigilant, scanning the horizon for any sign of salvation. The ocean, vast and unyielding, held its secrets close, a silent judge of those who dared to traverse its depths. And so, adrift and alone, Thomas Merrick faced the boundless sea, his fate entwined with the mysteries that lay beneath the surface, waiting to reveal themselves in time. Days stretched into an indistinct continuum as Thomas Merrick drifted amidst the vast undulating expanse of the Atlantic. Each sunrise brought with it the fragile hope of rescue, each sunset the crushing weight of solitude. His body was weakened, battered by the relentless sun and salt, yet his mind clung fiercely to consciousness and purpose. It was during one such weary afternoon, as Merrick scanned the horizon with bleary eyes, that an unsettling sight emerged. A silhouette against the shimmering backdrop, incongruous and haunting. At first, the figure was a mere shadow, blurred by heat waves and distance. But as Merrick focused his gaze, his heart tightened in a mixture of dread and disbelief. Floating nearby was the skeletal remains of a human form, tethered faintly to a piece of wreckage bobbing gently on the waves. The bone-white outline was stark against the deep blue sea, a macabre beacon in the endless water. Merrick's breath caught as he realized the grim reality. This was no ordinary driftwood or marine debris, but the remnants of a human body, long dead and stripped bare by the sea. Approaching cautiously, Merrick paddled toward the skeleton, his movements slow and deliberate, heart pounding with a rising tide of fear and fascination. The skeletal figure was partially entwined with rotting canvas and fragments of wood, suggestive of a shipwreck long forgotten. As Merrick drew closer, a chilling realization gripped him. Etched into the bone, faint but unmistakable, were markings that sent a shudder through his very soul. These were not random scratches, but deliberate, identifying marks, signs that linked this grim relic to himself. The sight defied comprehension. How could his own skeletal remains drift before him, a silent testament to a death he had not yet met? The paradox shattered the boundaries of reason, plunging Merrick into a vortex of confusion and terror. He reached out with trembling hands, touching the brittle femur and the hollow eye sockets, each fragment a stark reminder of mortality's finality. The bones were a perfect anatomical match, their structure identical to his own frame, as if they were a mirror reflecting a future he had not yet lived. The discovery ignited a torrent of questions and fears that Merrick could scarcely articulate. Was this some cruel trick of the mind, a hallucination born of exhaustion and desperation? Or had the sea conjured a supernatural omen, a spectral warning of an impending fate? The sailor, trained in the practical arts of navigation and survival, found himself adrift in a realm where logic faltered and the uncanny held sway. He examined the remains with a mixture of scientific curiosity and personal horror. The skull, though weathered and bleached, bore a faint scar, one Merrick recognized from a youthful injury. The jawline, the curvature of the ribs, the length of the bones, all matched his own physique with unsettling precision. It was as if the skeleton was a time-worn echo of himself, cast adrift before his final breath. Merrick's mind raced to reconcile this impossible vision with the reality of his own beating heart and ragged breath. The floating skeleton became a grim companion in Merrick's solitary voyage. He fashioned a crude raft from surrounding debris to bring the remains closer, arranging them carefully upon the makeshift platform. The juxtaposition of living flesh against stark bone created a surreal tableau. Two versions of the same man, separated by the fragile boundary of life and death. Merrick's journal, once a record of navigational notes and survival strategies, now bore sketches of the skeleton. Detailed observations mingled with anguished questions. This encounter forced Merrick to confront the deepest mysteries of existence: time, identity, and the nature of mortality. How could one man's future death be manifest before his present life? Was this a glimpse into a predestined fate, an inevitable outcome etched into the fabric of reality? Or was the ocean playing cruel tricks, a liminal space where past, present, and future blurred into indistinguishable shadows? The psychological weight of the discovery pressed heavily upon Merrick. He found himself torn between disbelief and acceptance, rationality and superstition. The skeleton was a silent oracle of doom, a tangible symbol that death was not a distant specter, but an ever-present companion on the endless sea. Yet, paradoxically, it was also a source of strange reassurance, proof that he still lived, that the moment between life and death was a fragile threshold to be navigated with care. Merrick's reflections deepened as he considered the symbolic resonance of the skeletal double. In maritime lore, the sea was often regarded as a realm where the boundaries between the living and the dead were permeable, a place where shipwrecks and ghost stories intertwined. The skeleton could be seen as an embodiment of fate itself, a stark reminder that the ocean claimed all who dared traverse its depths, indifferent to hope or prayer. As night fell, Merrick secured the skeleton to his raft, the two figures adrift beneath a canopy of stars. The eerie stillness of the scene contrasted sharply with the turmoil within his mind. He spoke softly to the remains, as if seeking answers or solace from a silent witness. His voice, carried away by the sea breeze, was a fragile thread connecting man to the mystery that enveloped him. In the days that followed, the presence of the skeletal figure shaped Merrick's experience of isolation and survival. It became a focal point for his fears and hopes, a grim reminder of the precariousness of existence. At times, the skeleton seemed to embody a companion in the vast loneliness, a reflection of his own struggle against the inexorable forces arrayed around him. In other moments, it haunted him like a shadow of death, a warning that no sailor could escape the sea's final reckoning. Merrick's journal entries grew more introspective, blending meticulous observations with philosophical musings. He pondered the nature of identity. Was he still himself, or had the sea transformed him into something else? The skeleton was both a mirror and a cipher, revealing the fragile boundary separating life from oblivion. Merrick's writing became a testament to the human spirit's confrontation with the unknown, a chronicle of a soul adrift between worlds. The physical reality of the skeleton also posed practical challenges. Merrick had to navigate the perils of the sea while tending to the fragile remains, safeguarding them from the waves and scavenging creatures. The act of preserving the bones became a ritual, a way to impose order on the chaos surrounding him. It was an assertion of control, however fleeting, in a realm governed by chance and fate. As the days wore on, Merrick noticed subtle changes in the relationship between himself and the skeletal double. The boundaries between self and other blurred, and the skeleton took on an almost animate presence in his thoughts. He imagined conversations, memories shared across the gulf of existence, a dialogue between the living and the dead. This psychological interplay was both a coping mechanism and a descent into an uncanny reality that defied ordinary understanding. The discovery of the floating skeleton marked a turning point in Merrick's ordeal. It was a macabre revelation that transcended the physical dangers of the sea, plunging him into an existential mystery that challenged the very fabric of his being. The skeletal figure was a haunting symbol of mortality and the sea's inscrutable power, a riddle that Merrick was compelled to unravel even as the ocean stretched endlessly around him. Thus, amid the vastness of the Atlantic, Thomas Merrick confronted a phenomenon that transcended the ordinary, a skeletal double drifting silently beside him, a spectral echo of a fate yet to come. This encounter would forever alter his perception of life, death, and the unfathomable depths of the sea's embrace. In the days following his grim discovery, Thomas Merrick found himself compelled to study the skeleton with an intensity born of desperation and bewilderment. The macabre figure, once a mere symbol of death adrift on the ocean's surface, became an object of meticulous examination, a puzzle that defied both logic and nature. Merrick's mind, oscillating between fear and fascination, sought to understand this impossible phenomenon, to glean meaning from a spectacle that seemed drawn from the realm of nightmare. With careful hands weathered by salt and sun, Merrick inspected the skeletal remains, noting every detail with the precision of a surgeon and the awe of a man confronted by the supernatural. The bones were remarkably preserved, weathered by time but intact, each joint and contour telling a silent story. He traced the curvature of the ribs and the length of the femur, confirming again the uncanny anatomical match to his own body. The skull, with its hollow eye sockets, seemed to gaze back with an inscrutable emptiness, a mirror reflecting a fate yet to be fulfilled. His reflections grew darker as he considered the implications of seeing his own remains before his death. The skeleton was not merely a relic of a departed soul, but a tangible manifestation of mortality's inescapable shadow. To witness one's own death, even in skeletal form, was a paradox that shattered the linear progression of time and existence. Merrick grappled with a profound unease, a sensation that his life was no longer governed by the familiar laws of nature, but by a mysterious force beyond human comprehension. In the quiet moments between the ocean's ceaseless rhythm, Merrick contemplated the nature of existence itself. The skeleton posed questions that transcended physical reality. Was this a premonition, a glimpse into a predetermined fate? Or could it be a warning, a spectral messenger urging him to alter the course of destiny? These musings were accompanied by a growing sense of vulnerability, as Merrick realized that his survival thus far might have been but a temporary reprieve from an inevitable conclusion. The sailor's sense of self began to unravel under the weight of these contemplations. The skeleton was a stark reminder that life was a fragile interlude between the unknown realms of before and after. Merrick's identity, once firmly anchored in his role as a mariner and survivor, became fluid and uncertain. He questioned not only the reality of his physical existence, but also the continuity of his consciousness. Was he still the same man who had embarked from Liverpool, or had the sea transformed him into something else entirely? Merrick's journal, once a chronicle of navigation and survival, evolved into a philosophical testament. He wrote of the skeleton with reverence and dread, sketching its form and inscribing his thoughts in a bid to impose order on the chaos surrounding him. The act of writing became a lifeline, a means to articulate the inarticulable, and to affirm his presence in a world that seemed increasingly unreal. His words captured the tension between hope and despair, life and death, certainty and the unknowable. The physical act of examining the skeleton also brought practical insights. Merrick noted the wear patterns on the bones, which suggested prolonged exposure to the elements and the relentless motion of the sea. Tiny barnacles clung to the surfaces, and traces of seaweed intertwined with the fragments of decayed fabric. These details hinted at a history, an odyssey of the remains through storms and currents, much like Merrick's own journey. The skeleton, in a sense, was a fellow traveler, subject to the same merciless forces. Yet, despite these observations, the enigma remained. How could the skeleton exist in such proximity, mirroring Merrick's own form, without explanation? The laws of nature offered no solace, and superstition whispered in the recesses of his mind. Merrick found himself caught between two worlds, the empirical reality of a sailor trained in observation, and the eerie suggestion of something beyond the material. The boundary between science and myth blurred upon the endless sea. As the days progressed, Merrick's psychological state was marked by oscillations between moments of clarity and episodes of profound doubt. The skeleton was both a symbol of his mortality and a catalyst for existential reflection. He pondered the concept of fate. Was his future sealed by forces beyond his control? Or could human will and resilience rewrite the story that the skeleton seemed to foretell? This question haunted his waking hours and infiltrated his dreams, where the line between self and spectre dissolved. Isolation magnified these inner struggles. The vast ocean, indifferent and unyielding, offered no answers, only the ceaseless sound of waves and wind. Merrick's dialogue with the skeleton became a silent monologue with his own fears and hopes. The remains, though mute, were imbued with a presence that transcended their physical form, a haunting reminder of the tenuous thread connecting life to death. Merrick found himself both repelled and drawn to the skeletal figure, a paradox of dread and fascination. In his journal, Merrick wrote of his attempts to reconcile this uncanny reality with his seafaring knowledge. He recorded the timing of tides and the direction of currents, seeking patterns that might explain the skeleton's drift and proximity. Yet none of these practical details alleviated the deeper mystery. The skeleton resisted explanation, a riddle embedded in the vast enigma of the sea. Its presence was a silent assertion that some forces operated beyond human grasp, indifferent to logic or survival. The sailor's reflections extended to the nature of death itself. The skeleton was a stark embodiment of what awaited all who ventured into the ocean's embrace, a return to elemental form, stripped of flesh and identity. Merrick considered the rituals of mourning and memory, the ways in which the living honor the dead. Here, in the boundless sea, such rites were impossible. The ocean was both grave and crypt, a place where stories dissolved into silence. Yet, amidst these thoughts, Merrick found a strange measure of resolve. The skeleton's silent testimony was also a call to perseverance, a reminder that life's fragility was matched by its tenacity. He resolved to continue his own struggle for survival, to resist the pull of despair that the skeletal image evoked. The sea might be a realm of death and mystery, but it was also the stage upon which human courage was tested and affirmed. In this liminal state, Merrick's relationship with the skeleton became emblematic of his broader confrontation with existence. The bones were at once a mirror and a cipher, a reflection of mortality and an inscrutable symbol of fate. Merrick's journey was no longer solely about physical survival, but about navigating the profound mysteries of life, death, and what lies beyond. Thus, as the sun rose and fell over the endless waves, Thomas Merrick continued his vigil beside the skeletal remains, an embodiment of the sea's power and the enigma of human destiny. His examination of the skeleton was more than a study of bones. It was an exploration of the fragile boundary between life and death, a meditation on the nature of existence in the vast, indifferent ocean. The endless solitude of the sea began to gnaw at Thomas Merrick's mind, fraying the edges of his sanity beneath the relentless sun and indifferent stars. Days melted into nights with little distinction, the rhythmic crashing of waves a constant haunting presence. The skeletal figure that floated beside him, once a grim curiosity, now became a spectral companion in his psychological descent, a symbol both of his mortality and of the profound isolation that threatened to consume him. Merrick's thoughts grew darker, his reflections tinged with despair and confusion. The vastness of the ocean was no longer a realm of freedom, but a prison of silence and emptiness. The absence of human contact, the endless horizon devoid of any sign of rescue, compounded his sense of abandonment. He wrestled with memories of the Eleanor, of warmth and camaraderie now reduced to distant echoes, like voices swallowed by the sea's eternal hush. Hallucinations began to creep into Merrick's waking hours, blurring the line between reality and imagination. In the quiet moments, he saw the skeletal figure move, not with flesh and blood, but with an eerie animation born of his fevered mind. Its hollow eye sockets seemed to fix upon him with silent accusation, or perhaps silent understanding. Shadows shifted in the corner of his vision, whispers of voices carried on the wind, though no one else was near. These phantasms unsettled him, yet paradoxically offered a strange sense of company in the oppressive solitude. The sailor's journal, once a tool of navigation and record-keeping, became a refuge for his unraveling psyche. He wrote feverishly, documenting these visions and his spiraling thoughts, attempting to anchor himself to reality through the act of writing. The pages bore witness to his mental struggles, the oscillation between hope and despair, lucidity and confusion. Writing was his only tether to the world he had lost, a fragile bridge spanning the abyss of isolation. Merrick's sleep, when it came, was troubled and fragmented. Dreams interwove memories and fears, conjuring images of the Eleanor engulfed by waves, of ghostly figures beckoning from the depths, and of his own skeletal double, reaching out with bony fingers. These nocturnal visions bled into his waking moments, deepening his sense of dislocation from the world of the living. The boundaries between self and other blurred. He questioned whether he was the man adrift or the spectre haunting the sea. Despite these psychological torments, moments of clarity punctuated Merrick's descent. He recognized the peril of surrendering to madness and fought to maintain his grip on reason. The ocean's vast indifference was a crucible that tested not just his body, but the very core of his being. His survival depended as much on mental fortitude as on physical endurance. He resolved to confront his fears, to face the shadows within as boldly as those without. The hallucinations often manifested around the skeletal figure, transforming it from inert remains into a silent interlocutor. Merrick found himself speaking aloud, addressing the bones as if they held answers or counsel. This imagined dialogue was both a coping mechanism and a descent into the uncanny, a communion with death itself. The skeleton, once a symbol of doom, became a mirror reflecting Merrick's own fractured consciousness. Isolation magnified the sailor's internal conflicts. The absence of human voices was replaced by the incessant roar of the sea and the whisper of wind through rigging and debris. Merrick's mind sought to fill the void with imagined sounds, snatches of conversation, laughter, even the creak of the Eleanor's timbers. These auditory hallucinations were both a balm and a torment, reminding him of what was lost while providing fleeting respite from solitude. His physical state deteriorated in tandem with his mental struggles. Hunger, thirst, and exposure sapped his strength, leaving him vulnerable to the ocean's whims. Yet even as his body weakened, his mind remained a battleground where hope and despair clashed fiercely. The skeletal companion was a constant presence in this internal war, a silent witness to his unraveling and resilience alike. Merrick's reflections delved into the nature of identity amid such extreme isolation. Was he still the man who had set sail on the Eleanor, or had the sea reshaped him into something unrecognizable? The skeletal double seemed to embody this existential question, a reminder that beneath the surface, the self could fracture, dissolve, or transform. Merrick grappled with the fear that he might lose himself entirely, swallowed not by the sea's depths, but by the recesses of his own mind. In moments of lucidity, Merrick sought solace in routine. He tended to the skeletal remains with care, as if honoring a fallen comrade or seeking communion with a part of himself. The ritual of preservation, cleaning, arranging, securing the bones, offered a semblance of control amid chaos. These acts grounded him, providing a purpose that countered the encroaching void. The skeleton was at once a burden and a lifeline, a symbol of death and a catalyst for survival. The sailor's journal entries reveal a mind teetering on the edge of madness, yet clinging to hope. He recorded dreams and visions with vivid detail, analyzed their meanings, and sought patterns that might guide him back to reason. Writing was both confession and exorcism, an attempt to wrest order from the chaos of isolation. His words bear witness to the resilience of the human spirit when faced with the abyss. As the days wore on, Merrick's hallucinations grew more vivid and frequent. The skeletal figure seemed to shift forms, sometimes a silent guardian, other times a haunting specter. Shadows danced on the water's surface, and whispers echoed in the wind, weaving a tapestry of fear and fascination. Merrick found himself caught between terror and a strange comfort, the boundary between reality and fantasy dissolving like mist. The psychological toll of isolation was compounded by the relentless uncertainty of rescue. Each distant shape on the horizon sparked hope, only to dissolve into mirage or emptiness. Merrick's thoughts cycled through despair and determination. The skeletal remains were a grim reminder of the stakes, the thin line between survival and oblivion. Yet, despite the torment, Merrick's will endured. The hallucinations and visions, while terrifying, also underscored his profound desire to live, to cling to identity, memory, and hope. The skeletal figure, once a symbol of death, became entwined with his struggle to remain anchored in life. Merrick's mind wove a complex narrative where the living and the dead coexisted, each reflecting facets of human endurance. In this crucible of isolation and fear, Thomas Merrick's experience transcended the physical ordeal of being lost at sea. His psychological journey became a testament to the fragility and strength of the human mind when confronted with the abyss. The skeletal companion was not merely a relic of mortality, but a mirror reflecting the profound complexities of survival, identity, and the will to endure against overwhelming odds. Thus, adrift on the vast Atlantic, Merrick grappled with his own mind as fiercely as with the sea's merciless embrace. His visions and hallucinations were both torment and testament, a haunting symphony echoing across the endless waves, a human soul wrestling with solitude, fear, and the unyielding desire to survive. The horizon, a faint line where sky met sea, had long since become Merrick's sole focus, a place where hope flickered precariously amid the vast indifference of the Atlantic. Days and nights melded into one another, each moment stretching endlessly as he clung to survival. Then, on a morning tinged with an eerie stillness, a shape appeared, breaking the monotony of the endless blue. A vessel, distant but unmistakably a ship, gliding silently toward him. Its presence was both a relief and a summons into deeper terror. Merrick's heart quickened as he squinted against the morning haze, the silhouette growing clearer with every passing minute. Yet, this was no ordinary merchant ship or naval vessel. Its form was ghostly, shrouded in a mist that seemed to emanate from the ocean itself. The sails hung limp, as if the wind refused to touch them, and the timbers creaked with a hollow resonance that sent a chill through Merrick's battered body. The ship moved with an unnatural grace, gliding silently over the waves as though unbound by the laws of nature. As the mysterious vessel drew nearer, Merrick's fears deepened. The ship's appearance evoked the legends whispered among sailors, the phantom ships said to haunt the seas, harbingers of doom and death. His skeletal companion, tethered beside him, seemed to react to the apparition, its hollow sockets reflecting the ghostly glow that surrounded the ship. The line between reality and nightmare blurred, and Merrick felt himself caught in a spectral tableau from which there was no easy escape. Merrick attempted to signal the approaching vessel, waving his arms and shouting hoarsely, his voice swallowed by the vastness around him. He fashioned makeshift flags from torn cloth, hoping to attract attention. Yet, the ship responded not with the expected approach of rescue, but with a series of strange, inexplicable phenomena that defied understanding. The air grew thick and heavy, charged with an electric tension that raised the hairs on his arms. The sea around the vessel shimmered with unnatural colors, hues that Merrick had never witnessed in all his years at sea. At moments, the ship seemed to fade and reappear, phasing in and out of sight, as if existing partially in another realm. Merrick's heart pounded with a mixture of hope and dread. Was this a salvation, or a summons to a fate worse than death? The ship's deck, visible through the spectral haze, was eerily empty, void of crew or signs of life. Yet Merrick sensed a presence, an unseen awareness watching him, waiting. The sailors' attempts to communicate were met with silence, save for the haunting creak of the timbers and the lapping of water against the hull. Merrick's desperation grew as the hours passed, the ship maintaining a slow, deliberate course, parallel to his drift. The boundaries between the natural and the supernatural dissolved, and Merrick found himself questioning the reality of the entire encounter. In his journal, Merrick later recorded the strange sensations that accompanied the ship's approach. The sudden chill that seeped into his bones, the inexplicable whispers carried on the wind, and the fleeting glimpses of figures that seemed to flicker just beyond sight. He wrote of the ship's shadow, casting darkness not only upon the water, but upon his very soul, a palpable weight that pressed upon his spirit. The skeletal remains beside him seemed to grow colder, their silent presence a grim counterpart to the ghostly vessel. Merrick's mind raced to interpret the meaning of this encounter. Was the ship a spectral messenger, linked in some unfathomable way to the skeletal figure, a symbol of his own mortality and the fate that awaited him? The legends of phantom ships, once dismissed as sailors' tales, took on a chilling reality. The ocean, it seemed, was a realm where the living and the dead converged, and Merrick stood at the threshold of these worlds. His attempts to signal the vessel intensified, each gesture a plea for salvation that seemed doomed to futility. The ship's silent passage was both a promise and a threat, a reminder that the sea's mysteries were vast and often dark. Merrick felt caught in a liminal space, suspended between hope and despair, life and death. The spectral ship was a manifestation of the unknown forces governing his fate, a silent harbinger whose intentions remained inscrutable. As the day waned, the ship's presence began to wane as well. It drifted slowly away, fading into the mist from which it had emerged, leaving Merrick alone once more upon the endless sea. The air lightened, the oppressive tension lifting with the ship's departure. Yet the encounter left an indelible mark upon the sailor's psyche. The boundary between reality and the supernatural had been breached, and Merrick was forever changed. In the aftermath, Merrick grappled with the profound implications of what he had witnessed. The ghostly vessel was not merely a figment of imagination, but a tangible encounter with the sea's enigmatic power. It reinforced the symbolic weight of the skeletal remains, linking them in a narrative of fate, mortality, and the unknown. Merrick's journal entries from this period are suffused with a mixture of awe and dread, capturing the complexity of his emotions. The sailor's isolation was punctuated now by the memory of this spectral visitation, a reminder that the ocean was not merely a physical expanse, but a domain where the boundaries of existence blurred. Merrick's experience echoed the maritime lore that spoke of ships that sailed beyond the realms of the living, vessels that carried souls between worlds. The ghostly ship was a manifestation of these ancient fears and mysteries, a silent witness to the fragile boundary separating life from death. Merrick's reflections turned inward as he pondered his own place within this cosmic drama. The skeletal figure, the phantom ship, and the endless sea were intertwined symbols of a fate he could neither escape nor fully comprehend. His struggle for survival was now also a confrontation with the profound mysteries of existence, a journey into realms beyond the tangible. Despite the terror and uncertainty, Merrick's resolve was not broken. The encounter with the mysterious vessel deepened his understanding of the sea's dual nature, both giver and taker of life, a realm of possibility and peril. The sailor's will to endure was strengthened by the knowledge that the ocean's enigmas were vast, but not insurmountable. The spectral ship, though a harbinger of fear, was also a catalyst for reflection and resilience. As night fell and the stars emerged, Merrick remained vigilant, eyes fixed on the horizon where the ghostly ship had vanished. The sea returned to its deceptive tranquility, the waves lapping gently against his fragile raft, and the skeletal remains tethered beside him. The encounter lingered in the air, a haunting presence that would shape his thoughts and dreams in the days to come. In the vast solitude of the Atlantic, Thomas Merrick faced not only the physical challenges of survival, but the profound mysteries that lay beneath the surface. The ghostly ship was a stark reminder that the ocean was a realm where reality and the supernatural entwined, where fate and free will danced in uneasy balance. Merrick's journey was no longer solely a battle against nature, but an odyssey into the unknown depths of existence itself. In the days following the enigmatic appearance of the ghostly vessel, Thomas Merrick found his thoughts increasingly consumed by the symbolic weight of the skeletal remains drifting beside him. More than a mere physical curiosity, the skeleton had become a potent emblem of fate, mortality, and the overwhelming power of the sea, a silent testament to the invisible forces that governed his fragile existence. The ocean, vast and inscrutable, revealed itself not only as a realm of natural peril, but as a stage upon which profound themes of identity and destiny played out. Merrick's reflections turned inward as he grappled with the meaning of his skeletal double. The perfect anatomical match was more than coincidence. It was a mirror reflecting the inevitability of death, a stark reminder that no sailor, however skilled or resolute, could escape the ocean's final claim. The skeleton embodied the universal truth that life was transient, a brief interlude between the unknowns of before and after. Yet, in its silent stillness, it also suggested a continuity, an echo of self persisting beyond the corporeal form. This realization stirred a deep meditation on the nature of identity. Merrick pondered what it meant to be a man adrift on the sea, stripped of the trappings of society, and confronted with the elemental forces of existence. The skeleton, devoid of flesh yet unmistakably human, challenged his understanding of selfhood. Was identity tied to the physical body, or did it transcend the material, persisting in memory, spirit, or something yet undefined? The ocean's vastness seemed to dissolve such boundaries, inviting contemplation of the eternal and the ephemeral. Maritime lore, long woven with tales of ghosts and omens, provided a lens through which Merrick sought to interpret his experience. The sea was traditionally seen as a liminal space, a boundary between the known world and the mysterious beyond. Sailors spoke in hushed tones of phantom ships, spectral figures, and signs that foretold doom or deliverance. Merrick's skeletal companion and the ghostly vessel both resonated with these traditions, embodying the sea's dual nature as both nurturer and harbinger. In this symbolic framework, the skeleton took on layers of meaning. It was a memento mori, a reminder to live with awareness of mortality. It was also a talisman, a silent guardian witnessing Merrick's struggle and affirming his presence amid the void. The sailor found himself engaging in a dialogue, not of words but of presence and reflection, with the skeletal figure. This communion was both a source of solace and an acknowledgement of the profound loneliness that defined his ordeal. The narrative of fate and the unknown permeated Merrick's journal entries, which grew increasingly philosophical. He recorded his thoughts with a mix of reverence and urgency, seeking to capture the intangible truths revealed by his isolation. Writing became an act of meaning-making, a way to impose order on chaos and to assert humanity in a realm governed by indifferent forces. The sea, in its vast silence, was both blank canvas and inscrutable author. Merrick's reflections extended to the elemental power of the ocean itself. The sea was a force beyond human control, vast and eternal, indifferent to hope or despair. Yet within this vastness, individual lives were played out with intense significance, a paradox that both humbled and inspired the sailor. The skeleton was a symbol of this paradox, embodying both the inevitability of death and the persistent spark of life that resisted oblivion. This symbolic interpretation informed Merrick's evolving relationship with his skeletal double. No longer merely a relic of death, the remains became a companion in his mental and spiritual journey. Merrick fashioned a place of honor for the skeleton upon his makeshift raft, tending to it with care and respect. These acts were rituals, grounding him amid the uncertainty and providing a semblance of continuity with the world he had lost. The sailor's meditations also encompassed the sea's role as a repository of human stories, of journeys begun and ended, of lives intertwined with the tides and winds. The skeleton was a tangible link to this vast tapestry, a fragment of a larger narrative that extended beyond Merrick's own experience. The ocean's memory was long, its depths holding countless secrets and echoes of those who had passed before. As Merrick navigated the physical challenges of survival, these symbolic reflections infused his ordeal with deeper significance. The skeleton was a reminder that his struggle was part of a continuum, a chapter in the ongoing story of humanity's engagement with the sea. This awareness fostered a sense of humility and connection, even as isolation pressed heavily upon him. The sailor's journal became a repository not only of practical observations, but of philosophical inquiry. Merrick pondered the themes of existence, identity, and the unknown with a contemplative intensity that transcended his immediate predicament. His writings reveal a mind grappling with the profound questions that arise when one stands alone at the edge of life and death, confronted by the mysteries of nature and self. Merrick's reflections were also shaped by a growing awareness of time's fluidity in his isolation. The sea's vastness distorted temporal perception, days blending into nights, and moments stretching endlessly. The skeleton, a symbol of death's permanence, contrasted with Merrick's own precarious grasp on time and life. This tension between permanence and transience added to the symbolic richness of the skeletal figure. In moments of quiet, Merrick found himself conversing silently with the skeleton, imagining responses and exploring thoughts that words could not fully capture. This imagined dialogue was a means of processing his experience, a way to confront the fears and hopes that defined his existence adrift. The skeletal remains, though mute, became a vessel for his deepest contemplations. The symbolic meaning of the skeleton extended beyond Merrick's personal ordeal to touch upon universal themes. It spoke to the human condition, the interplay of life and death, presence and absence, certainty and mystery. The sea, vast and unknowable, was a metaphor for existence itself, and the skeleton a stark emblem of the truths humanity must face. Merrick's evolving understanding of the skeleton shaped his mental resilience. The remains were no longer a source of dread alone, but a catalyst for reflection and endurance. The sailor embraced the paradox of the skeleton as both a harbinger of mortality and a symbol of the enduring human spirit. This duality infused his struggle with a profound depth, transforming his isolation into a journey of insight. Thus, amid the endless waves and shifting skies, Thomas Merrick navigated not only the physical challenges of the sea, but the symbolic currents of fate and identity. The skeletal figure beside him was more than bones and shadow. It was a silent testament to the mysteries of life and death, a companion in a voyage that transcended the material and ventured into the realm of the eternal. After weeks adrift on the merciless Atlantic, Thomas Merrick's ordeal took a sudden turn toward salvation. One morning, as the sun cast pale light upon the endless waves, a distant silhouette appeared, a sturdy schooner cutting through the horizon. The ship's approach was a beacon of hope, a lifeline extended across the vast expanse that had so recently seemed an endless prison. Merrick's heart surged with a mixture of relief and disbelief, the prospect of rescue awakening a powerful resurgence of strength in his weary body. The schooner, a vessel familiar in design, yet foreign in its sudden appearance, drew closer with purposeful speed. Merrick, weakened but resolute, fashioned his makeshift signals from torn cloth and debris, waving frantically to attract attention. The sailors aboard, alerted by his frantic gestures and the curious presence of the skeletal remains tethered to his raft, altered course to intercept. The rescue was swift and efficient, the crew pulling Merrick from the water with a combination of urgency and care that underscored the fragility of his condition. As Merrick was hauled aboard, the cold sea gave way to the warmth of human presence, the comforting sounds of voices, the solid deck beneath his feet, and the promise of shelter and sustenance. The skeletal remains, carefully secured alongside him, were met with a mixture of astonishment and unease among the crew. Whispers passed through the sailors, their eyes flickering between the silent bones and the gaunt figure of the man who had survived so long against the odds. The captain, a seasoned mariner named Elias Thornton, took immediate interest in Merrick's story. Over the following days, as Merrick regained strength, he recounted the harrowing tale of the storm that had separated him from the Eleanor, his solitary drift, and the inexplicable discovery of the skeleton that bore his own likeness. The crew listened with a mixture of skepticism and fascination, the tale sounding at times like a sailor's fable spun to pass the long hours at sea. Despite the incredulity, Merrick's detailed journal lent weight to his account. The pages bore meticulous notes, sketches of the skeletal figure, and reflections that transcended mere survival narrative. Captain Thornton, a man hardened by years on the ocean, found himself drawn into the mystery, recognizing in Merrick's story echoes of maritime legends that defied easy explanation. The ship became a vessel not only of rescue, but of unfolding enigma. Merrick's return to civilization was marked by a profound transformation. The physical toll of his ordeal was evident: sunken eyes, weathered skin, and a body weakened by exposure and hunger. Yet beneath this exterior lay a spirit tempered by the crucible of isolation and mystery. The sailor carried with him a story that challenged the boundaries of belief, a narrative where the natural and supernatural intertwined upon the restless sea. Upon docking in port, Merrick's tale quickly spread among the maritime community, capturing the imagination of sailors, scholars, and laypeople alike. The skeletal remains, preserved carefully and transported with him, became an object of curiosity and speculation. Some dismissed the story as madness born of isolation. Others saw in it a profound allegory of fate and the human condition. Merrick himself remained reticent, haunted by the memory of the endless waves and the silent companion that had shared his journey. The public reaction was a blend of wonder and skepticism. Newspapers recounted the sailor's miraculous survival and the eerie discovery, embellishing details and weaving the account into the rich tapestry of sea lore. Maritime scholars debated the story's veracity, examining the journal and the skeletal remains with scientific rigor and cautious intrigue. The phenomenon sparked discussions about the psychological effects of isolation, the mysteries of the ocean, and the thin veil separating life and death. Among sailors, Merrick's tale became a cautionary legend, a narrative warning of the sea's unpredictable power and the fragile boundary between reality and the uncanny. Poems and songs emerged, immortalizing the image of the sailor adrift with his skeletal double, a haunting symbol of endurance and fate. Artists captured the scene in paintings that juxtaposed the vastness of the ocean with the intimate tragedy of a man confronting mortality. Merrick's personal journey continued beyond the public eye. The experience had altered his perception of existence, instilling a deep awareness of life's fragility and the mysteries lurking beyond human understanding. He grappled with the psychological aftermath, the lingering shadows cast by isolation and the spectral encounter. Yet, his survival was a testament to resilience, a narrative where despair was met with hope and the unknown with courage. The rescue marked a passage from the liminal world of the sea's mysteries back to the ordered rhythms of human society. Merrick's story bridged these realms, a living testament to the enduring interplay between nature's vastness and human vulnerability. His journal, preserved alongside the skeletal remains, became a valuable record, both a historical document and a philosophical meditation on fate, identity, and survival. Throughout his recovery, Merrick sought to understand the deeper significance of his ordeal. The skeletal figure remained a constant presence in his thoughts, a symbol of the delicate balance between life and death, the known and the unknowable. He pondered the possibility that the skeleton was not merely a harbinger of doom, but also a guide, a companion through the darkest waters of existence. Merrick's story resonated beyond his own experience, inspiring others to contemplate the mysteries of the sea and the human spirit. His encounter with the uncanny challenged conventional notions of reality, inviting reflection on the boundaries of perception and the nature of fate. The sailor's journey became a narrative woven into the collective consciousness of maritime culture, a reminder of the sea's enduring power to shape human destiny. As Merrick resumed life on land, his thoughts often drifted back to the ocean, the endless horizon, the ghostly vessel, and the skeletal companion that had shared his voyage. The sea remained a potent symbol, a place where the mysteries of existence were laid bare. Merrick's survival was not merely a return from physical peril, but a passage through realms of profound uncertainty and revelation. Thus, Thomas Merrick emerged from the depths of isolation and despair into the embrace of rescue and civilization, carrying with him a story that transcended the ordinary. His journey was a testament to human endurance, a narrative etched upon the vast canvas of the sea, where fate and mystery converged. The sailor's return marked not an end, but a continuation, a chapter in an unfolding saga of survival, identity, and the enduring enigma of the ocean's depths. News of Thomas Merrick's extraordinary tale spread swiftly through the maritime community and beyond, capturing the public imagination with a mixture of wonder, skepticism, and fascination. His story, of a sailor lost at sea, adrift alongside a skeletal figure bearing his own likeness, and the subsequent spectral ship that appeared on the horizon, became a subject of lively debate and a burgeoning legend, woven into the fabric of maritime folklore and cultural discourse. The initial public reaction was a complex blend of incredulity and intrigue. Newspapers of the era, eager to captivate readers with sensational accounts, printed embellished versions of Merrick's narrative, portraying the sailor as both a heroic survivor and a man touched by the supernatural. Headlines spoke of "The man who met his own skeleton" and "Ghost ship haunts the Atlantic," sparking curiosity and fueling speculation. These accounts mingled fact and fiction, reflecting society's enduring fascination with the mysterious and the unknown. Among sailors and seafarers, Merrick's story resonated deeply. It became a cautionary tale, passed from one crew to another during long voyages, serving as a reminder of the ocean's unpredictable power and the thin veil separating life from death. Mariners shared the account, alongside other ghost stories and omens, interpreting the skeletal double and phantom ship as symbols of fate and the sea's inscrutable will. For many, the tale underscored the vulnerability inherent in every journey upon the waters. Scholars and experts in maritime history and psychology approached the narrative with a mixture of skepticism and serious inquiry. Linguists, anthropologists, and psychologists examined Merrick's journal and the preserved skeletal remains, seeking to understand the origins and implications of the phenomenon. Some proposed theories rooted in psychological stress and hallucination induced by prolonged isolation and trauma. Others speculated on supernatural or metaphysical interpretations, considering the story within the broader context of seafaring myth and legend. The scientific community's engagement with the case elevated its status beyond mere folklore. Debates arose regarding the nature of human perception under extreme conditions, the influence of isolation on cognition, and the possibility of unexplained phenomena manifesting in the liminal space of the open sea. Merrick's detailed observations and the physical evidence he brought back provided a unique case study that blurred the lines between empirical investigation and the enigmatic. Artists and writers found inspiration in Merrick's ordeal, contributing to the story's proliferation in popular culture. Poets composed verses evoking the haunting image of the sailor, adrift with his skeletal double, capturing themes of mortality, solitude, and the mystery of the sea. Painters sought to depict the eerie tableau, the endless waves, the silent bones, and the ghostly ship, imbuing their works with a sense of timelessness and existential reflection. These creative expressions amplified the tale's reach, embedding it within the cultural imagination. The narrative also sparked philosophical and existential discussions among thinkers of the time. Merrick's experience was interpreted as a metaphor for the human condition, the struggle against fate, the confrontation with mortality, and the search for meaning amid uncertainty. The skeleton became a symbol of the inevitable end awaiting all, while the spectral ship represented the unknown journey beyond life. These interpretations found resonance in contemporary debates about life, death, and the mysteries that lie beyond. Maritime institutions and societies took a keen interest in the case, organizing lectures and discussions that brought together sailors, scholars, and the curious public. The story was analyzed not only for its factual content, but for its cultural and symbolic significance. It became a touchstone for exploring the relationship between humans and the sea, a relationship marked by reverence, fear, and a profound sense of awe. Among the broader public, Merrick's tale contributed to a growing fascination with supernatural and mysterious phenomena. It aligned with the era's burgeoning interest in spiritualism, the occult, and the exploration of consciousness. The story's elements, the spectral ship, the doppelganger skeleton, and the psychological ordeal, intersected with contemporary themes of uncertainty and the quest for understanding beyond the material world. Despite the widespread attention, Merrick himself remained a figure of quiet dignity and introspection. He navigated the sudden prominence with a reserved demeanor, often retreating into reflection rather than public spectacle. His personal writings reveal a man deeply affected by his experience, wrestling not only with the physical aftermath, but with the profound questions it raised about existence and the nature of reality. The story's endurance was ensured by its adaptability, the way it could be retold, reinterpreted, and reimagined across diverse contexts. It became a living legend, evolving with each telling yet retaining its core mystery and power. For sailors, it was a cautionary emblem; for scholars, a case study; for artists and poets, a source of profound inspiration. In the years following Merrick's rescue, numerous accounts emerged of individuals experiencing similar phenomena. Visions of skeletal doubles during moments of extreme stress or altered consciousness, sightings of ghostly vessels on distant horizons, and encounters with inexplicable manifestations at sea. These reports, often anecdotal and difficult to verify, nevertheless contributed to the mythos surrounding Merrick's story, suggesting that his experience was part of a larger, enigmatic pattern. Maritime folklore grew richer with the integration of these narratives, and the skeleton adrift with Merrick became an archetype within the seafaring tradition. Tales of doppelgangers and spectral ships were woven into cautionary tales told to new generations of sailors, embedding the story within the collective memory of those who venture onto the ocean's vast and mysterious stage. Through it all, the core mystery of Merrick's experience remained unresolved. Scholars debated, storytellers embellished, and the public marveled. But the fundamental questions endured. What was the nature of the skeletal double? Was it a premonition, a hallucination, or a supernatural messenger? What did the ghostly ship signify in the vast theater of the sea? These questions continued to inspire curiosity and contemplation. Ultimately, the tale of Thomas Merrick transcended its origins as a singular event to become a multifaceted legend, an enduring narrative that bridged history, psychology, folklore, and philosophy. It spoke to universal themes of survival, identity, and the human confrontation with the unknown. Merrick's story became a testament to the power of narrative itself, a vessel carrying the mysteries of the sea and the depths of human experience across generations. The sailor's ordeal, once confined to the boundless Atlantic, found new life in the minds and hearts of those who heard it. It became a mirror reflecting humanity's eternal dance with fate and the unknown, a haunting melody sung across the waves, whispering of the fragile line between life and death, reality and the supernatural. In this way, Thomas Merrick's story continued to sail onward, carried by the tides of memory and imagination, forever part of the ocean's enduring enigma. Decades after Thomas Merrick's miraculous rescue, and the ensuing public fascination with his extraordinary tale, the mystery of the sailor and his skeletal double endured as one of the most perplexing and evocative legends in maritime history. Scholars, sailors, artists, and philosophers alike continued to grapple with the implications of his experience, as its echoes rippled far beyond the confines of a single voyage or moment in time. The narrative had transcended its origins, becoming a profound meditation on human existence, mortality, and the unfathomable depths of the sea. The enduring enigma of Merrick's skeletal double remained a focal point of inquiry and speculation. Throughout the 20th century, researchers revisited the case with renewed vigor, employing advances in forensic science, psychology, and oceanography to seek explanations. Yet, despite technological progress, the phenomenon resisted definitive understanding. The skeleton's anatomical congruence with Merrick, its inexplicable presence adrift beside him, and the mysterious circumstances surrounding its discovery continued to defy conventional logic. Among the most compelling theories was the notion that the skeleton represented a temporal anomaly, a manifestation of a future self cast back across the currents of time. This idea, while speculative, found resonance in emerging scientific discussions about the nature of time and consciousness. Some proposed that Merrick's encounter was a glimpse into a non-linear reality, where past, present, and future intertwine in complex ways beyond human perception. Such interpretations imbued the tale with a metaphysical dimension, framing it as a portal into the mysteries of existence itself. Parallel to scientific discourse, the story maintained a vibrant life within the cultural and artistic realms. Writers and visual artists continued to draw inspiration from Merrick's ordeal, weaving the themes of identity, fate, and the supernatural into their works. The image of the sailor adrift with his skeletal double became an archetype, symbolizing the fragile boundary between life and death, the known and the unknown. Literary critics analyzed these representations, noting how they reflected broader societal anxieties and fascinations with mortality and the afterlife. Maritime folklore evolved with Merrick's story at its core, enriching the tapestry of seafaring legends. The tale became a cautionary emblem for sailors venturing into the vast, unpredictable oceans, a reminder of the sea's power to reveal hidden truths and challenge human understanding. Accounts of spectral doubles, ghostly ships, and otherworldly encounters proliferated, often linked thematically or directly to Merrick's experience. This folklore served both as a repository of collective memory and as a cultural mechanism for processing the existential uncertainties inherent in a life at sea. The case also influenced explorations into altered states of consciousness and the psychology of isolation. Reports surfaced over the years of individuals experiencing visions or encounters resembling Merrick's skeletal double during times of extreme duress or sensory deprivation. These phenomena were studied within the context of neuropsychology and parapsychology, raising questions about the mind's capacity to generate or access experiences that transcend ordinary reality. Merrick's story thus became a nexus point for interdisciplinary inquiry bridging science and the supernatural. Philosophically, the narrative prompted profound reflections on the nature of selfhood and mortality. Merrick's confrontation with his own skeletal image challenged assumptions about identity as fixed and continuous. The notion of a double evoked questions about the multiplicity of the self, the persistence of consciousness beyond the physical body, and the interplay between fate and free will. Thinkers engaged with the story as a metaphor for the human condition, the tension between the ephemeral and the eternal, the known and the unknowable. The enduring fascination with Merrick's ordeal also underscored the human need to find meaning in the face of uncertainty. His journey became emblematic of the broader quest to understand life's mysteries, particularly those encountered at the margins of experience. The ocean, vast and inscrutable, served as a fitting backdrop for this quest, a symbol of the unknown that both terrifies and inspires. Merrick's story, with its blend of survival, mystery, and the uncanny, encapsulated this duality. Over time, the tale's influence extended into the realm of popular culture and media. It inspired adaptations in literature, theater, and eventually film, each iteration exploring different facets of the narrative and its themes. These retellings varied in tone and interpretation, from psychological thriller to supernatural drama, reflecting the story's rich complexity and its capacity to resonate across diverse audiences. The mythos surrounding Merrick became a cultural touchstone, a narrative wellspring for explorations of human vulnerability and resilience. Despite the proliferation of interpretations and the passage of time, the core mystery remained intact, a testament to the story's enduring power. Merrick's skeletal double, the ghostly ship, and the vast Atlantic that bore them continued to captivate imaginations and challenge understandings. The narrative resisted closure, inviting ongoing exploration and reflection rather than offering definitive answers. In this resistance lay its profound appeal, a story that mirrored the boundless depths of the sea and the human spirit alike. The legacy of Thomas Merrick's journey is thus one of enduring mystery and inspiration. It speaks to the complexities of existence, the interplay between fate and choice, and the profound enigmas that lie at the heart of life and death. The sailor's encounter with his skeletal self remains a haunting symbol, an invitation to ponder the limits of perception and the nature of reality. It is a story that whispers across the waves, timeless and unfathomable, echoing the eternal dance between the known world and the vast unknown beyond. In reflecting on Merrick's tale, one is reminded of the delicate balance between survival and surrender, between knowledge and mystery. His voyage was not merely a physical odyssey across the ocean, but a metaphysical journey into the depths of human experience. The skeletal double, silent and inscrutable, stands as a witness to that journey, a reminder that beneath the surface of life lies a vast and mysterious realm, where the boundaries of time, identity, and existence blur into the infinite. Ultimately, the story of the sailor lost at sea, and the floating skeleton is more than legend. It is a meditation on the human condition itself. It challenges us to confront our fears, to embrace the unknown, and to recognize the fragile beauty of life amidst the vastness of the cosmos. Thomas Merrick's journey continues to inspire and mystify, a timeless echo carried on, the eternal tides, inviting all who listen to ponder the mysteries that lie just beyond the horizon.